Record. All right, so tonight on our Monday Mastermind, we are going to be talking about scale versus measurements. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay. So we get asked this question a lot as coaches, especially for new people that are starting and want to gauge their success with, starting a program and seeing what results they get. So, when we start a challenge group in the Challenge Tracker app, you do log your weight and you do log your measurements. And we, as coaches, I think they're both important, but I just wanted to have the conversation about scale versus measurements and kind of go about the two and what I've learned through the years that I've been on my journey here. So it really does depend on you. So if you feel like a failure every time you stop on the scale, then don't use that as your measure. And so I know previously, like in my teenage years and in my early 20s, I had a bad relationship with the scale, I guess you could say. I didn't like the scale because whenever I stepped on the scale, it wasn't very often, but when I did, I would be kind of like down, and I did view it as like a failure thing. So for that reason, when I started my journey, my fitness journey, I didn't like to weigh myself very often. If I did, it was just on a monthly basis. And I honestly would hide the scale because that's how much I did not have a good relationship with the scale. So it really just depends on you as a person and what your current relationship is. If you're besties with the scale and you're like, I don't mind stepping on that scale every day, then that's fine. Then you can do that. Everybody's so different when it comes to this. And it really is just roots from growing up, just like anything else. So the only thing with scales is that they only measure our whole body. So that includes the fat, that includes our muscle, our organs, our water, and food. So because of that, and obviously throughout the day, that's going to fluctuate, right? As we drink water, as we have food, you'll notice if you step on the scale in the morning, after you go to the bathroom naked, that's going to be totally different than after you step on the scale with clothes on after eating a big meal. That could be 5-10 pounds possibly. So that matters as well. If you do have a healthy relationship with the scale, though, like I just said, weigh yourself first thing in the morning before eating or drinking anything, preferably naked. Weigh yourself monthly, weekly, daily. So that's up to you. So now that I have a better relationship with the scale, I do weigh myself most days just because I like to see based on what I ate the previous day, if that worked for my body or against my body. So I personally just like to do it daily now. But I wasn't always that way. For many, many years, I would just do strictly monthly just to see where I was at with my weight loss. A lot of people are comfortable with the weekly check-in. So play around with it. If you get down about it, then maybe stick to the monthly until you have some results and maybe have a better relationship. Remember, the scale does weigh everything, like I said. So just because you don't see a change in numbers doesn't mean that you aren't changing, that your body composition isn't changing. You might be gaining more muscle, and that's where measurements could come into place. So what about measurements? So measurements can give you a better idea if you're actually losing fat, and it is very motivating. I found, at least with myself, is if you do it weekly or monthly, and if you don't like the scale. So for myself, I would just take my measurements and my weight in the first day of the challenge group and the last day. I did not touch anything in between that time, but I trusted the process. And that's really what we're asking of you guys, is to just trust the process. If you are doing your workouts per the calendar, if you're eating food 90% of the time healthy, you will get results. So it's just also believing that you will. And then where to measure. So in the app, it asks you for the chest, waist, hips, thighs, upper arm. I flex the biceps when I measure. Your calves, you can also add as you're to the biggest part. Another thing that I wish I kind of had on the app, but this is something that I used to measure, which for me was my biggest motivator after having children. So for the mamas out there, that pooch area, that was really, like I said, the biggest motivator for me, which was kind of like an inch below my belly button. I would measure that because that was one of the areas that had stretched the most. Sorry, Sherry. Or after having babies. So that one I also used to track in the beginning. And so really, this is a very short slide and very short call. But the best way is really whatever works for you and whatever keeps you sane. If you have a healthy relationship with the scale, use the scale. If you rather, want to see your body composition, then use the measurements. Another tool that a lot of fitness professionals also suggest is body fat percentage. If you want to go out and buy the calipers, or I know some scales have the reading too. It's like a sensory that goes through your skin and your body to see how quickly it comes back. Will determine your body fat. There's also like the water thing where you're submerged in water. And that typically is a better accurate way of determining fully where you're at. But for me and for most challengers, we're not going to go get, water weighed because of the cost and time involved and all that. So really, I do suggest both, because like I said, the scale doesn't tell the whole story. And sometimes neither do the measurements. So it's, for myself, I found that doing both helped me keep me motivated to continue on to the next month and the next month and the next month until finally all of those efforts compounded. And it's still to this day, it's a never ending journey, as we all know. Yeah. So also another option is just really, some people don't like the scale at all, but some people don't like to measure. They just like to go by how their clothes fit and how they feel. And really how you feel is the biggest, factor to consider. If you have more energy, if you're having healthier bowel movements, then you know that you're headed in the right direction. And so here's the sound of music, and I just thought it was funny me after finally going. So I've never had a problem with that, but I know so many women do have a problem with that. And, so once you're regular, it could be an extremely different life and such a better way of living. But so at the end of the day, it's really just based on you and what you find works better for you and keeps you sane. Sherry, you're on the call. Do you prefer scale versus measurements, or do you do both?
It's kind of funny because when I was in college, I took like health, wellness, and fitness. So I had to have like kind of all of the tools. So I had like a thing that would actually like go around like your arms or whatever. And then I had like the calipers, but then I also bought a scale, but it's like a Fitbit scale, and it would actually measure like your weight, but it would also have your body fat percentage. So I've used 3, and I just always have. But I've gotten away from the measurements just because I find the Fitbit scale to be so accurate.
Okay.
So I use that, and I'm kind of like a daily scale.
Okay.
It's not like obsessive, because I know you kind of have to be careful sometimes.
Right.
A little too much, but for me, I find it keeps me accountable to like, okay, like today that worked, or yesterday, like what happened yesterday that caused this to carry over to today, or something like that. So I find that it keeps me a little bit more accountable. I don't like wake up and like, okay, like what do I weigh? It's not anything like that. Just okay, like that worked yesterday, we had a good day. Right. I learned a lot about that in the 2B mindset, and it's kind of like a healthier way of looking at the scale rather than it being like a negative thing. I use it, okay, that worked for me, I saw improvement, let's try to do that again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. And for those of you that don't know the 2B mindset and you're interested in learning more about it, reach out to your coach. But it really does change the way that you view, like Sherry said, not only nutrition and just how like certain foods are going to fuel you, and to think of, healthy foods as not like punishment, but as foods to actually give you energy. And you still can have treats, but then also having a healthy relationship with the scale, and just changing that mindset, which is really key.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had for tonight. Hopefully, you know, it was helpful. And if you have any questions about the body fat thing, or maybe, Sherry, so what was the brand you used? It's like a Fitbit scale?
Yeah, it was I feel like it's the Fitbit. I can't remember the brand. It was like one of their
Okay.
first ones, and I've had it for like 6 years, and it's amazing. It was
Okay.
pretty cheap. I can find it. It'll say on the scale. I can post it for you.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that could be
I
another
look.
option too if you are interested in the body fat composition, since it seems like they've improved and they've gotten more accurate as well.
Yeah, and it
So,
was reasonably priced, which was nice because I bought it when I was going to school. So
okay. Awesome.
yeah,
All right. Well, thanks for hopping on, and I'll share this in our team page and in our challenge groups, and hopefully you guys have a good night.
sounds good. You too.
Thanks. Bye.